Hello everyone, welcome to Agile Network India. So we have a third session from Trivandrum chapter. We have Priya Nair with us, who is an IT strategist, data analysis with Cognitive Decision. She is a VP Emerging Technologies and she has 2 decades of experience in the industry. She'll be speaking on digital transformation in clinical research data analysis workflow. She's going to share her experience. Before I welcome her, let me thanks our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots. Innovation Roots is a leading consulting and training service provider helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information, I request you to visit www.innovationroots.com. Quick do's and don'ts. Join the event 5 minutes before the start time. Use high quality speakers and headphones for better sound quality. Please keep your microphones muted and video disabled as this may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via chat box. Facilitator or moderator will help and read out the questions to the speakers as per the time availability. Please fill the feedback form after the event to help us understand more about the event management. We appreciate your cooperation. With this, I will invite Priya.
Good afternoon, all. I thank Agile Network India for giving me this opportunity to share my experience with all of you today. I'm going to talk about digital transformation in clinical research domain and how we got to build this data analysis workflow onto one platform and what were the agile practices that we followed during this journey. That is what I will be talking to you today on. So when I'm saying data analysis workflow, I would be sharing more about the data standardization process that we followed here, and we'll briefly cover the workflow because it is more of a domain-specific information. So it is a journey from legacy, heavy, and rigid application to agile, lightweight, and flexible solutions. And on the right, I have just listed out the topics that I would be going through or taking you through. I'll start with clinical research, give you a fair understanding of what this domain is about and the phases in the drug development process. And in that, we will be concentrating more on the data analysis part and what our product or tool is doing about. Then we will look at the conventional approach that is prevalent in the industry today. What are the things that the teams do when they are working in the data analysis part, and how we are trying to, automate those things. Then the decision, why we thought of innovating, like when we had the option of improving, what made us take a different route. Then I'll address the roadblocks. Naturally, when you start on some journey, there will be challenges, right? So what were the roadblocks or bottlenecks that we faced and how did we address them? Then I have to talk about the milestones because that was something which we found had helped us a lot when we were clear on what are the milestones in our roadmap that we should be, concentrating on, and that was something very critical in our journey. Then I'll talk about why is it that flexibility is the basis of agile process. What does it imply when it comes to in a project delivery? When you are successfully delivering a project, how does it help? Then I'll cover the building blocks that helped us in our journey, in my experience, and then I'll share my highlights from this experience. So let me start on clinical research. I'm sure with the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, everyone would have come across this term, the clinical research term, and especially the clinical trials. When we had, news reports talking about the vaccine development happening or being conducted by the various pharma companies, right? So clinical research is meant to determine the safety and effectiveness of medications, devices, diagnostic products, and treatment regimens intended for human use. So the object or the element, whichever is being researched, will be used for, it could be used for prevention, treatment, diagnosis, or for relieving symptoms of a disease. And when it comes to clinical trials, it is an experiment. These are experiments designed to answer specific questions about possible new treatments or new ways of using existing treatments. Now, to give you a very easy example is like say the vaccine in this case. How much is the dose that has to be, administered to an adult, and what is the number of days that has to be uh, between the first dose and the second dose. So these are some things which is deducted when using these clinical trial experiments. Okay, so that is how trials help us in coming up with an optimal values of the dose of drug and how frequently it has to be administered when it comes to the drug or medicine. And then I just have to let you know that there are 4 phases in the clinical trials also. 1, 2, and 3 will be related to the trials which happens before the drug is made available in the market, and the phase 4 happens after the drug is available in the market to the wider masses. Okay. Now, I have listed a few therapeutic areas over here. I have mentioned diabetes, heart disease, and oncology. Just to let you know that these are the disease areas in which a lot of clinical research is being happening. Of course, when I looked into the list, which is published by FDA, there are around 55 therapeutic areas currently active. And so these are, we can call them as disease categories, right? And and they relate to a particular organ in your body. So the different parameters, how they get collected, the values that are collected, so it all differs. The data representation pertaining to specific disease area, it all differs. So you can imagine the variety of data that we would be getting, which we have to standardize. Okay. Now, these are the phases in drug development, and we would be interested more into the data analysis stage, which I have highlighted in a yellow box. Right. Now, whoever is into data analytics would know whatever data we collect from the source, that is the raw data, would definitely have to undergo some pre-processing, right, before it is made available for some kind of analysis. So same applies over here also in the drug research. The data which is collected after the trial, it has to undergo the pre-processing stage, and then there is also the I mean, in the pre-processing stage is what the data standardization happens, because there are these agencies which have defined data standards, and also the analysis data sets are created, the analysis is done, and then the report generated, and then it moves on to the next 2 stages, that is the creating the clinical study report and the submission, regulatory submission. Now, regulatory submission is required, and different countries would have their own agencies. Like if in the US we have FDA, the counterpart in India is the Central Drug Standards Control Organization, right? So every country would be having their own regulators who would allow the marketing of the product in their respective country. So so what I'm arriving at is in this particular stage, like the data analysis stage, it is the biostatistician who is getting involved in this for doing all the tasks, right? Right from cleaning the data to transforming it, standardizing it, creating the analysis data set, and then doing the analysis and generating the report, also the study report. So, and so the biostatistician becomes the end user of the automation tool that we have developed. Now, let me give you a quick overview on the conventional approach. In I have mentioned over here the data standardization for regulatory agency approval. So we will be concentrating, as I mentioned in the data analyst phase, there are a lot of things that has to be done, right? So we will be concentrating more on the data standardization part, because that is what the tool has covered at the moment. And if you look at if I have to mention how the current approach is followed in the industries, it is a very cumbersome process workflow. Like it has lot of or multiple proprietary and legacy software being used. That is, the user has to use multiple tools to achieve certain tasks, right? So in and out of multiple tools. And then there are a lot of manual process that they have to follow, right? From defining the data mapping, like when the raw data has to be converted to the standard form, what is the mapping logic that they have to use? And they have to refer to the guidelines to write all this. Then they have to look up the standard terminology library, because in the healthcare domain, there are a lot of such terminologies which has to be referred to. And then they have to refer multiple other standard documents. It's just not the guidelines that they use for standardization. There are other documents also related to the healthcare industry, right? It is not just pertaining to the clinical research, but in other areas of healthcare also. So they have to refer multiple other standard documents, and then they have to create a validation report also, right? Whatever standardization they have defined the mapping, and they are converting it into the standard format, right? So whether that is valid, that is the report that they have to generate. So all this becomes manual process. And then the end user, here in this case is the biostatistician, would have to have some programming knowledge also, because he or she has to process the data, right? And what happens is, in this case, it happens using the same proprietary software or legacy software that they are using. So they have to have some programming knowledge of using that. Then other thing is, they have to manage this entire process, explicitly manage it. The code and the data files, the version control, the documents, the review process, everything they have to manage by themselves. So these are the things that we thought, if we could bring in some automation over here, we could make their life easier. Like, in the sense, they have to concentrate on their core skills, which is doing the analysis and figuring out whether the drug is safe enough or not, right? So they can concentrate more on their core areas, and then leave the other part to the automation tools. Now, what was our decision? Why did we, when it came to whether we have to innovate or improve, why did we thought whether we have to take a different route? Now, first thing was, our team, who were working on this clinical research domain, had tried out all possible improvement options, which was which they could try out, like say reusing or reusing writing functions or methods, reusable functions or methods, or reusable pieces of code, or say creating report templates. So they had done whatever was possible within the legacy and proprietary softwares that they were using. They had tried all options, and they had already put those in place, all those improvement options. So, as I said earlier, also they were using these reusability options with the same legacy software. So, in a case that it has been a sort of indispensable tool, right? So that was the situation. And other two factors that we considered when we thought, okay, we should go and innovate over in this space, was one is our expertise and experience in automation in a similar solution, right? But it was for a different domain, not related to healthcare. But we already had our teams experienced in that area, doing data standardization. And we already had that solution in the market, and we had clients for whom we were doing that. And the third thing was, like, we had the technology implementation for multidisciplinary solution, all the skill sets required for that in-house, which is a very rare combination, like having the clinical team, the software development team, the AI ML team, all under one roof is a very rare combination. So we had that advantage. We had all these teams under the same roof. So we thought, why not go ahead and innovate in this space, right? And then coming to some of the factors which I feel helped overcoming the conventional mindset, I just listed out over here. One is the inclusive problem solving approach. Now, what we made sure was we had as I said, we had our domain experts also in-house. So all our development team members and other teams who were supporting this development, we made sure that they had very intensive and lengthy discussions with the domain experts for many days, right, to understand the approach, or what is the thing that they are doing at the moment, and where we could bring innovation over here. And it was very focused discussion in the sense that all teams were together and they made sure that they are collecting enough information to put up the approach that this product should bring in when it comes to the workflow, when it comes to the UI design, when it comes to the product features. So all these things were discussed in the presence of the domain experts as well. So they were included in all these discussions. So that is one major factor which helped us in striding through the conventional mindset that people had in this industry. Second thing was the interactive mock-up demonstration. Now, when we do the UI mock-up, it just giving them static things doesn't help. I mean, we started with that, but then we realized that it is very difficult for them to you know envisage how it would happen when the tool is actually working, how the flow will happen. So in that case, giving them an interactive mock-up demonstration before the actual development happens helped us a lot to get a lot of inputs beforehand, right? And we could improve their lot the workflow and go ahead with the development only once that was signed off. Then the third thing was the user experience design input. The user experience thing, in that area, I have to tell that one of the instance which I have to mention over here is collecting the user experience was through when the UAT releases used to happen. We used to have the online calls to check back with the clients to whom we were catering to. And so when we started building the tool, the automation tool, after every milestone, we made sure that we are presenting this to our existing clients to get their feedback as well, so that we get to know what is the gap in the solutions that we are providing, whether we can fill it immediately or we need to, keep it in a backlog to cover it in a later version. So these are the things that we make sure that we are getting inputs from the client, directly from the client, right from the beginning. So that was one thing which helped the team to be, believing in this solution and cooperating with the development team equally. And last was the agile development. Definitely, that is a no-brainer because and when I'm talking about agile development, we had like over the period of time as the team grew, we had to create sub teams so that everyone could have their independent agile practices, and they followed their uh, what to say working solutions that they have to develop. So there were some teams which were already following some agile to some extent, but we make sure that then it is scaled and it you know it goes. I mean, more and more teams are getting involved, and the entire project team is following the agile practice. So that is what we did. Now, addressing the roadblock, we thought we were doing great. Like couple of things which was there where we were confident that we could achieve is like we had the capability to build this humongous solution. The team had the necessary technical competency, and we had a unique mix of various domain and technology experts, as I said, all in-house. So we had all the success mantra with us, and we were very, confident of doing it or achieving it. Uh, that was our thought. Okay, but definitely when we as we moved along this journey, like we built the POC, then we came up with the base version, then we went on building the demo version 1, demo version 2, so on as we moved along. What happened? So as I said, we were showing it to our existing clients uh, during the every milestone. We made sure that we did these demos. So we were getting feedbacks, and accordingly, we were incorporating or redefining our roadmap and inculcating those feedback during our sprint cycle. So what happened is the scope started increasing, and then our team also started growing. So definitely we had to um, and as I said, there were some teams who were already practicing agile to some extent, but not all the teams. So over a period of time, what we observed was something was wrong, something was missing. So we too encountered our roadblocks. What were we doing wrong? We continued to build on the POC, right? And another thing was software development concepts or principles were totally getting sidelined as the scope started increasing. The design, the architecture, design patterns, DB normalization, reusability, scalability. We were all were getting sidelined because our focus was more on what to say, based on the feedback that we received from the client, right? To build those on, and we were simply going ahead and building those on the POC version. So we were started to accumulate the technical debt, which at some point of time we realized that no, we had to restructure all this or revamp before it grows beyond control. So the few teams were following agile, the effort was not effective while it when it was to be, they had to work cooperatively with other teams, and the result was not looking great to us. I just listed some of the things that was very obvious on this right side. Each team was building with little coordination and no synchronization at all. As the scope started growing, we had various teams: the UI team, the mapping team, the standard, the team who was working in the backend, like the standardization part, then the AI/ML team. So like that, we had different sub teams. Each team was building; they were doing their great work, but when it comes to coordination or synchronization, I mean, there was a huge gap. I mean, the gap was increasing. Then the permanent storage data redundancy, which we observed because we as these teams were doing their tasks, they had their own databases, right? Because we use these APIs to connect. So they had their own databases, and at times, since we are following these guidelines, which has a lot of terminologies and libraries, right, which has to be referred for different variables or parameters in the healthcare. So what happened was people were replicating that in different databases. So that was something which was not good. So that was one major thing which we observed was happening. Then anxiety and confusion within teams and domain experts and end users highlight, because there was no proper synchronization happening. There was a lot of confusion because there was no great, I mean, a coordinated communication was not happening or was not put in place because as I said, we started with the POC, we moved on based on the feedback that we were receiving, each team building on their own, right? And the knowledge management was in haywire. I mean, there was no management at all of knowledge that was happening different. Information sharing was happening in multiple smaller groups or in one-on-one. So every team had access to the domain experts since they were in-house. So they were having their meetings and sometimes one-on-one and collecting the information, but that information was within that team, or I should say within that sub team, and it was not being shared, or others were not being aware of. So what happened was the domain experts had to share this information multiple times with multiple teams because it was not a coordinated effort. Meetings were happening without concrete action items and resulting in a lot of unproductive work. Teams were getting non-cooperative. That means slowly it was like silos were starting to build. So that was uh, when we decided that we had to take control. As I said, the scope started increasing, and along with that, we started adding more team members. So definitely, we had to bring in and we had to think about the scaled agile framework to be put in place so that everything is well coordinated. So few things that we did was emphasizing every team adopts agile process, not and it was like everyone has to have this their task put on the Kanban board. We were following Kanban, so and updates to that. They had to have their plan for the week. Such as I have listed those in the diagram, next diagram. Then strong sense of ownership and accountability to teams, retrospective. Like from so it is very obvious that when we have larger teams, definitely it is difficult to cater to the needs or doubts of everyone, or when it comes to decision making. So when you give them the ownership and accountability, it becomes their ownership. So they have to definitely resolve those. So that is how we try to distribute the ownership, and it doesn't rest on one person, but it is a collective thing happening. Then team of teams formation and reiterating the collective goal. um, then being transparent, representatives from every team invited in all key decision making sessions and meetings. So this was something we have to strictly put in place, because as I said, the knowledge sharing sessions, they were happening randomly, and so the domain experts had to the same information they had to repeat with multiple teams, which we thought was not going to help us in the long term, or we are just wasting a lot of time. So then we became transparent. We had representatives from every team and invited in key decision making or knowledge sharing sessions. Then inter-team discussions were conducted regularly. All teams represented in status updates walkthroughs. So whenever we had walkthroughs, either it could be of the UI mockup, or it could be of the UAT release, or it could be some requirements that we are discussing, because these requirements also, it is huge. So we cannot just do all the requirements at one time and then build it. It was like we incrementally learned or grabbed the information. So all teams were represented in the status updates and walkthroughs. Then review process were incorporated, because these are the reviews and audits are the way in which we can ensure that whatever processes that we are claiming that we are following is actually being followed. So we make sure that we are putting in place the review process, and it happens regularly. The disconnect should help you in this on the diagram on the right. I've just listed out what were the things that we did when we were practicing agile. When I say the disconnect should help you retrospect and decide, no, it is based on your team or your project requirement that you decide. See, we all know that there are different frameworks available for agile, right? And it is up to you or your project requirement that you decide which one you have to take, and how would manage your project delivery accordingly. So and so if you have to and then so let's say you have to begin somewhere with the agile process, right? So say you can start with following Scrum, and then you can bring in the agile maturity through, say, inspection and adaptation, adapting to the various agile practices, and then investing in the right tools and technologies. So that is how you can get started, and make sure that your agile practices are improving at the as you move along the timeline. That is another thing that you have to take into account. Your processes, your practices, collaboration, communication, inspection, adaptation, everything has to improve. So that is what over the period of time when we moved along, like I should say we started maybe on the revamp and the processes in place after the demo version 2. We made sure that we are following all these things diligently. And then it was like uh, you try it out and then you put it into practice. So unless until you try out a practice, you would not know whether it will work for you or not. And then you can adapt accordingly. So few things which we put in place was we had individual teams doing their weekly plans, what has to be achieved by their team. Then interdependent teams bi-weekly review meetings were conducted, because there's a lot of communication that has to happen, right, between the two teams. So they have to so if one team is building something, the other team has to maybe support them with certain kind of API. So that happens during the bi-weekly review meetings that we do, so that every other team knows what other teams are doing. So what happens is there's a slot given to every team to present what they did during the last 2 weeks and what is their plan for the next 2 weeks. Then UAT release and end user demo in every 4 to 6 weeks. So that again was based on how or what is the feature that we are working on. If something which would take a much longer time, because we might not, it might not make sense, breaking it. So it might extend to 6 weeks. So based on that, we used to plan our UAT release or the end user demo accordingly. And then the top management status update meeting happening every 2 months. And along with, since I said in the beginning, we had our clients giving us the feedback. So end user or client feedback. So since the beginning, or say I should say, since demo version 1, we have been, or our team has been doing client demos. So we had all those presentations and screenshots, everything with us right from that time, put into place, so that we are ready to do a client demo anytime during the development process. Then doing the roadmap planning. So all this was part of our agile practice. These are, as I said, these are the milestones that we worked on, and we made sure that we are building incrementally, right? So two things that I want to highlight over here is build useful solution for each milestone. That is, in Agile we say something which is working, a working software, right? Something which is valuable to the end user. They can see how things are getting evolved with every iteration. Then early feedback from the industry expert. That is what something in my experience helps us a lot, because what the industry perceives is not what we think, right? Their pain points would be something which is totally different. They would be needing just very simple things to be addressed first by a tool like this. So that is what is important. So getting their feedback early on helps us plan our roadmap also. So as I said, we started with POC. In the POC, we had just say these basic things in mapping and standardization modules being independently developed by respective teams, and all those get integrated only in the base version, because once we did the feasibility based on our experience in a different domain, providing similar solutions, we use that same learning and build the POC, and we thought, okay, we could move ahead with this particular solution in this domain as well. And then had this all these components integrated in the base version. Then we went on to have a UI for that, and also enabling access control. That is when we could show it to our internal, our customers as well, and we could also present a paper in the conference, use conference. Then then in the next demo version, we made sure that we had these the conventional workflow which was being followed to some extent incorporated in our demo version, so that we can showcase to the prospective clients that these all things which at the moment they are using different tools or different softwares to accomplish this task can be done from one single platform. So that was what we tried to achieve in demo version 2. And after that is what we tried to, revamp our architecture and start following all these processes. And we had our mapping and standardization done for many more data sets. Because when we started the POC, we just did it for one data set. But as I showed you, when it there are many therapeutic areas and there are many different types of data sets that we have to standardize. So we incorporated more of the data sets in our version 1, where we revamped everything, the architecture as well as the UI. And then when we came up with the version 2, which was the MVP version, we made it more generic. That is, the end user would be able to, define their business rules also. We provided them with a editor, right, a rules editor through which they could change the or customize the rules. So that was the generalization that we brought in along with many other features. Right. So that is how we incrementally build the solution. Now, flexibility is the basis. When we say flexibility is the basis of agile process, what are we? In my perspective, in my experience, these are the things that I felt makes sense when we tell it to be flexible. Responding to change, incorporate the feedback from the market and our own domain experts. So that is what we did with the tool. Then emphasize end user collaboration. So okay, we usually software development teams, they are so what to say, want to work on their own, put in their algorithms, try out and put in their features. But we have to always ensure that we are, in constant collaboration with the end user, or I should say the customer who would be using the tool, right? Because they would have their pain points, as I said, would be very different from what we perceive. So constantly being in collaboration with them to understand how they use the tools, how they do their daily tasks, right, and aligning our solutions accordingly, and prioritizing them. That is more important. Then the third thing is generalizing specialist. When we say generalizing specialist is a person who is specialist in one particular area. So if it is a technology, it could be, yeah, like in my case, I am a specialist, or I have work experience and certifications in Java technology, but then I do have a generic experience of other things as well, other languages also, programming languages, as well as to some extent database and the UI, HTML, Angular. So that is what generalizing specialist is. You make sure that you have team members who are falling in that category, right? Because that is how we will have members with these different skills. They could contribute something of direct value, right, and share responsibility with other sub teams. Otherwise, it would happen like they would have to endlessly wait on for some small changes in the UI or in the Angular part, just to avoid that dependency. So even if they are cross trained like that, and they have some overall idea about the different technology, it helps. Then is the framework boundaries. adapt to the process requirement for the project. So whatever framework you choose in Agile, um, make sure that you are adapting the processes based on the requirements of your project, right? And another thing which I want to stress out over here is like make sure that you are following whatever, I mean, apart from these things, make sure that you are following the engineering best practices also, like having code reviews, the unit tests done, then automating the build pipeline, uh, how much that is possible. You can try out that. So, so those things along with evolving your agile practices also, or you reinvent the agile as the team moves along the time frame, right? That is also something which you have to um, take care of. The building blocks. Now, in my experience, whatever was the building blocks uh, in this project, that is what I have mentioned over here, team intelligence. Now, this is something which I have to elaborate a bit on. See, when we talk about clinical research and the guidelines that we followed, right, for the standardization process, it is something like 400 plus pages, right? And there are other terminologies and other libraries or other standard documents also, which the team had to imbibe when they had to put this solution across. So it is not like, and it is highly impossible, I should say, for just one person to have that entire knowledge. Not in this particular case. We had all this information with different people, right? It was a collective thing for us. Only then we could put up a solution like this. So as I said before, when we had this interactive or these intensive sessions with our domain experts to understand this domain, we made sure that it was properly planned. We had all the teams, and all the teams were part of the discussion, including our UI team, the DevOps team, because they need to understand what exactly is happening in this solution, right? So they were all part of the discussion, and so it was a collective thing for us, whatever knowledge that was being shared. And then is the user experience. As I said, how we discovered certain things, how our tool was not very user friendly, and how it changed. I guess we changed the versions. We are now at the fourth version of the UI. So that many times we had to revamp our UI because something or the other we used to discover which was not very user friendly. And that is the thing. So user experience matters a lot. At the end, whatever you are delivering has to be, made, or people has to use it, right? So make sure that you give that experience to the user. Then communicating the roadmap, that is something which is has to be done consistently, and that has to be done with every team, because we cannot just concentrate on the development team, the testing team, the UI team. They are also equally important, when it comes to understanding the roadmap, or the DevOps team, when it comes to, okay, when they have to ensure that they have automated all those things, so that by the time the development team is done with this many parts, they are ready to integrate all those things. So communicating the roadmap consistently to all the teams was very critical in this particular case. Then the demos, because we were right from the beginning, we were doing that. So the team was anytime ready whenever it comes to a customer to whom, a prospective customer to whom we had to show the demo. So being ready with that early on, right from the beginning, made us, easy for us later also when the product evolved. Then some few things I've listed at the right, getting started. That is, I just wanted to talk about the agile process. Wherever you are, you cannot claim and tell the your team like we are have to strictly, I mean we have to follow this agile process and just list that out. You have to get started somewhere, and it would be slowly that you will have to put that into place, because whatever are their challenges is nothing to do with what your agile practices or agile agenda that you push them to, because their challenges would be their UI is not running, or it is between the different browsers, in one browser it is just collapsing, so their problems would be something very totally different, right? So when you get started, you have to gradually take them through that process. We're introducing one process at a time. Start somewhere. If it works, it is good. You can continue or you can improve on that. If it doesn't, find another way, right? So that is what I have to tell over here. Then prioritize your backlog. That is very important, because in the end, whatever is you're providing should be of value, right? So whatever is not critical, of course, it can be in your backlog, but you can plan it for later versions. Then evolution to MVP, as I said, incrementally building it, and early integration. Here I have to point out one thing. Like early integration in the sense, like say in our case, we had our AI ML team helping the providing what to say recommendation, mapping recommendation. Right? That is one of the areas that they worked in. So in that case, what I used to insist the team was like, you are anyway going to provide an API to the mapping team, right? So why don't you at least push the API design, right? So that they can start integrating it in their system, and maybe at the time being they can just push a static data to that, right? And later when you are done with your component and it is finished, you have done with the testing, you can push the actual dynamic values that you get from your ML code, right? So this was something which I had learned long back when I started as a developer, and that was something which I made sure that I am following in every place or every project that I was working in. And what was my role in this project? I should say, it is like when it is a bigger agile team or a bigger project team, there are multiple issues that has to be taken care of, right? Like the project management activities has to be ensured. Then the technical or the architectural issues that come up. Then it could be the system integration part, or it could be the requirements or the product ownership related issues. So I was involved in all this as a lead, technical architecture, to ensure that all these things are working in synchronization. So these are my highlights. I have covered most of them. So this is what is my takeaway. Um, and I just wanted to let you know through this session. One was about knowledge. When you're working in such a big uh, what is a project, it is the team intelligence that matters. It's collective knowledge. Then the user experience, because the end product matters. It has to be used whatever solution you are providing. Then embrace increased agility. So as I said, you have to observe and gradually take your team through this process. In gradually starting it at one point and adding on to those processes and adapting as you go along. Right? So assess, engage, retrospect, and adapt. That is what I would want to say. Then improve productivity. There are n number of ways you can see wherever you can improve your productivity. One is meetings that you can say, like when you have your daily stand up or scrum, make sure that it doesn't go beyond 10 minutes. At max 15 minutes, not more than that. I used to strictly follow that. And if there is anything which needs more detailed discussion, I made sure that the teams, have a separate discussion on that and not waste everyone's time, right? So that is one thing. Then other productivity things are many more things that you can follow, right? Like you can have your personal Kanban, or you can have your must, should, and want list. There are a number of ways you can prioritize your tasks, or you can have a checklist of items that you are doing. that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Priya. Uh, I can see how much work has been gone. I have one question in mind. Yeah. So, so as you sort of talk about this particular totally into different
Yeah.
domain, this is a very vast, and you must be actually interacting with many people who
Mhm.
are from different domain altogether, right? Many SMEs or very diversified people who have been involved in this, right? So how you were able to keep them, because it's so you can see like clinical data means collection, getting data from different channels and all. So how you were able to keep everyone in line actually in this? Was it like a major transformation you took a decision, or is it like how you incrementally got this transformation? Well, how was it?
Yeah. Thank you, Prashant, for that. Yeah, this is definitely, there are a lot of SMEs involved as it, the clinical research team, the AIML, the development, the UI, everyone working together synchronously. That was very critical. Now, when we say about clinical research, so let me give you some background about what our team, does at the moment. What they do, when we say the data analysis part, right, which is done by the biostatistician. So these are we have something called CROs, okay, in the clinical domain who conduct this analysis, right? So the team which does the trial would be different. They would be doing planning the trials, and they would be collecting the data. The data would be either collected electronically or on paper based, and that data is what our team receives. So
Mhm.
that is what is the input to the biostatistician, and they
Mhm.
then standardize the data, convert it into analysis data sets, and then do the analysis and then generate the report. Right. So data is available to us. Um, um, it could be either Excel format, right?
Mhm.
So that is the way in which we get raw data,
Yeah.
and then yes, it is a so what. Made this transformation, I should say, the early on we showed this to the existing customers. The early
Okay.
demos we showed, no, so we used
Yeah.
to have constant demos with them, showing as it evolved, as the tool evolved. So that helped us, coordinate and bring all the teams together. Yeah.
Thank you, Priya. I think yes, it is really challenging and as well at the same time interesting also to go with such a huge transformation and
Yes.
make. So on behalf of Agile Network India, I would like to thank you for taking some time out and sharing your thoughts on this.